All right, welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going deep on startup funding,
Startup funding.
which
It's exciting stuff.
it is. It really is,
Yeah.
especially since I know our listeners are entrepreneurs themselves. So much of what we talk about here is hopefully applicable to
Absolutely.
everyone listening. We are looking at an article today called 5 Common Mistakes That Prevent Entrepreneurs from Getting Investment.
5 common mistakes.
And so this will be kind of a rapid fire, but hopefully a deep dive into each of those mistakes. And
Avoiding those pitfalls.
yeah, exactly. How to avoid them, some examples from the real world, and even some recommended reading
Great.
if you want to go deeper on any of these topics. So, mistake number 1, this is a classic. Building a product nobody wants.
Oh yeah, this is a big one.
It's a big one. It seems so obvious, but it's amazing how many entrepreneurs fall into this trap.
They get so passionate, they have this idea.
Right, they're blinded by the brilliance, potentially.
Exactly, and they kind of forget to ask, does anybody even want this?
Yeah,
Is there a need?
like if I build it, they will come. The Kevin Costner
Yeah, field of dreams.
Field of Dreams, not always how it works. We've seen that time and time again. I mean, think of Quibi.
Oh, Quibi. Yeah, that's a perfect example. They raised billions of dollars,
Crazy money.
but shut down in months because they didn't really figure out if anyone needed this. They didn't validate the market need. Short form video on the go sounds great, but free content like YouTube and TikTok, that was already a thing.
Already dominating that space. So how do we as entrepreneurs, or even just people with ideas, how do we go beyond just like talking to our friends and family to really validate an idea?
Yeah. So one thing is you can conduct in-depth customer interviews.
Mhm.
You got to go deeper than just like, hey, would you like this? You got to really uncover their problems, what they're currently doing, what solutions they're using.
All right, what are they actually doing, not just what they're saying?
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
like being a detective almost.
Yeah, it's like uncovering those insights that you might not get from
Mm.
just surface level conversations.
I like that. Okay, so we've done our deep customer interviews. What else?
Well, you can also test your assumptions with an MVP, a minimum viable product.
Love it, MVP.
You'll launch an early version, just the core features, get some real world feedback.
So you're not building the Taj Mahal, you're building a lean-to, basically, to see if people even want to camp in that spot.
Precisely. And don't forget about platforms like Kickstarter.
Mm.
You can pre-sell, you can gauge the interest before you invest, tons of money in production.
Totally. I mean, that's essentially what Kickstarter is. It's a way to validate
It really is.
and also to fund, which is great.
Yeah.
And for listeners who want to go deeper on this whole concept of idea validation and building something people want, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries is the gold standard.
It's a classic.
It's a classic. Okay, moving on to mistake number 2. And this is kind of tied to the market validation piece. A weak business model.
So you've got a great product, but how are you going to make money? Investors, they want to see a path to profitability.
So it's not just enough to solve a problem, you need to solve it in a way that's financially sustainable.
Exactly. And a common mistake is just focusing on the revenue side, how much money you're bringing in, but you forget about the costs.
The expenses, yeah.
Exactly. Let's think about Webvan.
Oh, Webvan, the grocery delivery service, right?
Yes. They were huge in the dot-com boom. They raised so much money.
Crazy amounts of money, yeah.
But their model wasn't really sustainable. They invested heavily in the infrastructure,
Delivery trucks, warehouses, all of that.
but they didn't have enough demand, and their costs were way too high. They were losing money on every order.
Yeah, that's not good. So building a fancy delivery system isn't enough if each delivery is costing you more than the customer's paying.
You got it.
So what are some things entrepreneurs should be considering when they're building their business model?
Well, your unit economics, how much does it cost to acquire a customer? What's the lifetime value of that customer?
I was like, is this customer worth it, essentially?
Exactly. And think about different revenue streams, subscriptions, ads, partnerships.
Yeah, think outside the box.
Experiment with your pricing. Don't just try to scale super quickly, scale smartly.
Right.
And a great book on this is Business Model Generation by Alexander Osterwalder.
Another classic.
Yeah, it's got a great framework for visualizing and testing different models.
Love it. Okay, mistake number 3. And this one might surprise some people.
Oh,
Yeah, poor pitch and lackluster storytelling.
you think so?
I think so, because even if you have a great idea, if you can't communicate it in a way that's compelling,
Yeah, you got to capture their attention. Investors, they're investing in people. They're investing in visions.
it's not just about the numbers.
It's not just about the spreadsheet.
It's about that connection.
It is. Think about Airbnb. Their early pitches, They were super technical, but they weren't really getting anywhere. Then they shifted, and they focused on the problem they were solving.
Okay. Interesting.
Expensive hotels. And they tapped into that desire for a unique travel experience.
So they moved from, here's our website, to here's how we're changing the world.
Exactly.
I love that.
So they started incorporating storytelling, real-life examples of how Airbnb was connecting people, and that resonated.
It's all about the story. And for those who want to master that art, Made to Stick by Chip Heath and Dan Heath is a must-read.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
For crafting those memorable stories.
On to mistake number 4. Bad financial management.
Okay, now we're talking numbers.
Now we're talking numbers. This is where things get real. Investors, they want to see that you understand your financials, your burn rate, revenue, margins, all of that.
Absolutely. They want to see that you know your stuff.
It's like driving a car without knowing how much gas is in the tank or how to change a tire.
Or even what kind of car you're driving.
Right, exactly. You might get going, but you're probably going to run into trouble.
You are. A major red flag I see is entrepreneurs not understanding key metrics, like burn rate. How much cash are you burning through every month?
How quickly are you spending?
Exactly. And then runway. How long is that cash going to last?
Right. So it's not just how much you're making, it's also how much you're spending.
Absolutely. Another mistake. Overspending.
Yes. The fancy offices, the extravagant marketing campaigns.
It all adds up. And then there are cases like Ceranos, where it was really misleading investors, and that led to their downfall.
A cautionary tale, for sure. So what are some practical things entrepreneurs can do to manage their finances effectively?
Well, use tools. QuickBooks, Xero.
These are the classics.
Track everything. Know your break-even point. When does your revenue cover your expenses?
That's a big milestone.
It is. And to understand, the psychology of money, I recommend The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
Another great one.
It's a good one. It gives you that understanding of, the behavioral side of money.
All right. We're on to mistake number 5.
Okay, number 5.
And this one might surprise some listeners. Choosing the wrong investors.
You'd think any investor is a good investor, right?
Right. Money is money.
But it can actually be bad for your startup.
It's like entering into a bad marriage just for the dowry.
It can be. Some investors, they want too much control. They push you in the wrong direction. They might have conflicts of interest.
Yeah, that's no good. We want alignment.
You want to be aligned with your investors. Think about Evan Spiegel, co-founder of Snapchat. He turned down a $3 billion buyout offer from Facebook.
Wow.
Because he didn't think their visions were aligned.
We had that long-term view.
Exactly. And he also rejected some early investors who didn't share his vision.
Interesting. So he really held true to his values and his vision.
He did. And it paid off.
Big time. So what should entrepreneurs look for when they're evaluating potential investors?
It's like assembling a dream team. You want more than just money. Do they have industry experience, valuable connections? Have they supported startups you admire?
So it's about partnership, not just funding.
Exactly. Do your research, do your background checks, talk to other startups they funded, and don't be afraid to negotiate terms.
Right. Protect yourself.
Yes. And a good book for this is Venture Deals by Brad Feld and Jason Mendelsohn.
It's a Bible for venture capital.
It's a good one.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
A lot of mistakes.
A lot of mistakes. But if we were to zoom out for a second, what are investors really looking for when they decide to back a startup? Like, what makes them say yes?
I think it's a few things. They want to see a validated idea, right, with a strong business model.
Of course.
A team that's passionate, capable.
So it's not just about the idea, it's about the people behind it.
It's about the people. And a compelling story that really captures their imagination.
So it's not just the numbers, it's the vision, the potential for impact.
Absolutely. They're betting on the future. They want to see entrepreneurs who can build something truly extraordinary.
This has been an incredible deep dive. So much great info.
It's exciting stuff.
Really is. Lots to think about. But we'll be back.
We'll be back.
With part 2 to explore even more.
More insights.
And answer that thought-provoking question you left us with. So stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the deep dive. We just finished looking at those 5 major mistakes entrepreneurs make when trying to get funding. I'm curious, what really stood out to you from that list?
It's fascinating how interconnected those mistakes are.
Right.
Like, a weak business model often comes from not doing enough market validation.
It's true.
And even if you have a brilliant idea, a bad pitch can just totally kill it.
Yeah, it's like a chain reaction, one weak link, and the whole thing falls apart. But before the break, you left us with this really interesting question. If you were the investor, what would make you say yes to a startup pitch?
Hmm.
Hmm.
I think for me, it boils down to conviction. Does the entrepreneur truly believe in this? Do they have a vision?
Not just like rah-rah passion.
No, but like reasoned passion, backed up with data, a real understanding of the market.
They've done their homework.
Exactly.
So investors are taking a risk, right?
They risk.
They need to see that the founder's all in. But conviction alone isn't enough, is it? What else would you be looking for?
I'd want to see a solution that's different. Something unique, not just a copycat idea, you know?
Because there's so much out there already.
Yeah, so to really stand out, a startup needs that edge. That's something special. Makes me think of Zero to One by Peter Thiel.
Oh, that's a great book.
He talks about how real innovation is going from 0 to 1, not just copying what's already there.
Creating something totally new.
Yeah, and that's what gets investors excited, the potential to disrupt, to create whole new markets.
Speaking of investors, I think our listeners would love to hear about Angel by Jason Calacanis.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
It gives you that insider perspective on angel investing.
He tells you what they're looking for, how to approach them, how to build a good
He has a
relationship.
peek behind the curtain.
And he's really honest about the ups and downs of startups, gives you practical advice.
He doesn't sugarcoat it.
Not at all.
And for those who are ready to really get into the nitty-gritty of building and scaling a company, The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz.
Oh, that's a classic.
Yeah.
He's a real straight shooter, tells it like it is.
He's been there, done that.
Yeah, he shares those tough lessons, the stuff most people don't talk about. Hiring, firing, dealing with crises.
So it's a good one for those who are maybe a little further along in their journey.
Yeah, for anyone who's really in the thick of it.
It's amazing how much wisdom there is in all these books.
It's like having a mentor right there with you.
It really is. Let's touch back on some of those books again, just to remind people.
Good idea.
For anyone who's struggling with market validation, The Lean Startup, that's your go-to.
Test those assumptions, build, learn, repeat.
And if you're trying to figure out your business model generation is super helpful.
It helps you map it all out, the revenue, the costs, all the moving parts.
And then there's the storytelling piece. Made to Stick can really help you craft those messages that stick with people.
Whether it's your pitch, your marketing, anything you're communicating.
It's all about making it memorable.
Exactly.
And for the financial side of things, the psychology of money.
That one gets into the psychology of it all, not just the numbers.
Because it's not always rational, right?
Not at all.
And of course, if you're dealing with VCs, venture deals is the Bible.
It demystifies that whole process, helps you negotiate, get the funding you need.
These books are packed with information.
They really are. Actionable advice, you can use it right away.
So it's like having a toolbox, right? Everything you need,
And the more you learn about this stuff, the more you understand.
the better off you'll be.
Yeah, you'll be ready to secure that investment, make your vision a reality.
That's what it's all about. We believe in you and your dreams.
Now, I got to ask our listeners one last question. Think about it. What's one skill that's super important for entrepreneurs, but people often forget about? We'll talk about it when we come back.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. We've been talking about getting your startup funded and all the things that can go wrong.
And right before the break, I threw out a question for our listeners
You did a good one.
about an overlooked skill for entrepreneurs. What do you think it is?
Well, I have my theories, but I'm curious to hear yours first.
Right, well, spill the beans. For me, it's got to be resilience.
Resilience. Okay, I can see that.
Because entrepreneurship, it's not a smooth ride, you know?
Definitely not. It's more like a roller coaster.
Exactly. Lots of ups and downs, challenges you never saw coming, moments where you just want to quit.
It takes a certain kind of person to handle that.
It does. Resilience is that toughness that helps you bounce back, you know? Learn from the mistakes and keep going even when it's hard.
Like fall down 7 times, get up 8.
That's it. And it's not just about getting back up, it's about adapting. The best entrepreneurs, they can change their plans, pivot when they need to, handle all that uncertainty.
So you got to be flexible, open to new ideas, not afraid to change course.
Exactly. And this goes back to those investors we were talking about. You want people who get it, who know that startups aren't always smooth sailing.
Right. They're with you for the whole ride.
Exactly. They're your safety net when you're walking that tightrope.
I like that analogy.
So, resilient founders, they attract resilient investors.
It's a match made in startup heaven.
And together, they can get through anything.
All right, so let's do a quick recap. We talked about those 5 big mistakes that can kill your chances of getting funded.
Yep, those were lack of market validation,
A shaky business model.
A boring pitch that doesn't tell a story.
Messy financials.
And partnering with the wrong investors.
We also talked about what investors DO look for.
A validated idea, a strong business model, a passionate and talented team.
A story that makes them want to believe, and a good fit between the founder and the investor.
And that all-important resilience.
That's right. So if you could pick one thing for our listeners to take away from this whole deep dive, what would it be?
I'd want them to understand that getting funded isn't just about having a cool idea. It's about building a solid business.
So validation, a strong model, telling your story well, smart financial management, building the right relationships.
It's about being resilient, adaptable, committed to making something truly great.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Entrepreneurship, it's a journey. And that journey starts with a single step.
So take that step. You might surprise yourself with what you can achieve.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. Thank you to our expert for joining us.
My pleasure.
And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. Keep learning, keep growing, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.